Hello, good people of YouTube. Brian Cusco here at Triple B. Today our guest is Mr. Eugene Bessette of Ophiological Services. Eugene has been breeding reptiles successfully as a business longer than probably most people ever. He's one of the industry pioneers. He's going to share today with us a wealth of knowledge that is in his brain, and if you yourself hope to one day have a successful reptile breeding business, this information should be of much value to you. You're watching Triple B TV. So I know it's been a time spanning nearly half a century, but how did you first get started? Can you give us a brief summary of how you got started in this industry?
Yeah, I'd be real happy. I kind of like a testimonial story, but at the age of 7, I had this crazy spiritual experience. I moved down here from New Hampshire when I was 3 years old, and all I spoke was French back in the day, and we were living in Gainesville. My dad worked at the university. My mother and I were getting ready to go out and do something, and I was like 7 years old, so my mother's grabbing my hand. We're going out the door, and the phone rings, and she answers it, and then she stops, and in the window right here was this big chrysanthemum bush or something like that. It was flowery, and there was this big anole jumping from flower to flower, and this big black snake comes flying up in there and grabs this anole and just nailed it, and my mother screams, and so when your mom screams, you scream. My mother goes screaming away from the window, and I'm trying to reach and grab the snake, and I heard a voice that said, "This is what you're going to work with." Well, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer or be a priest or something like that. Well, you can tell I never became a priest. I never became a lawyer. But this is what God called me to do. It's not a religious experience. It's a spiritual experience. So I knew in my heart of hearts at the age of 7, this is what I was called to do. And growing up in the Gainesville area around Archie Carr and Offenburg and Ross Allen, and then my mentor, Dr. Van Merup, who was a pediatric cardiologist, and when I look and realize why God moved our family to Gainesville was for me. My dad was an accountant. He could have done that in Montana. He could have done it anywhere, So I realized that I was set apart. And this is my testimony. This is what I know in my heart. Now, I can do anything I want, but my best blessing has come by being obedient to God. Some people may get this, they may think I'm crazy. I don't really care what anybody thinks. I know what I've been doing for the last 60 years. And I'm happy, and I'm content, and I'm loving this business, I'm loving this industry, and I'm loving the people.
That's an early age to find your calling like that. Some people go a long time without finding a calling like that.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I've been hiring college students for 40 plus years, and I tell them, what's in your heart? What do you want to do? Even if it doesn't make sense, even if your parents don't want you to do it. But if it's in your heart, dude, you got to go do it.
That's what you got to follow.
You got to follow it.
That's the only way.
Because that's when you're going to be blessed.
Exactly.
And it's not just about money. It's about having a great life, a good life, rendering service, helping other people, doing what you're called to do. It's not easy.
I agree.
So, I could expand more on it, but that it in a nutshell, that's it. And so I know where I'm going. I know what I'm called to do. I'm going to go get it done. I can't lose.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's my story.
Yeah, that's the best answer. I've never had anybody give a better answer than that. So do you have any advice for anyone that's in it for a hobby and looking to turn it into a business in the industry?
Well, that's a good question. I tell you, I've seen a lot of people with more gifts and talents and financial backing than I've had, but what they didn't have the passion. In other words, you got to have this attitude. I can't be defeated. I'm never going to lose. You know what I'm saying? You can whip my butt today, but I'll be back tomorrow. And you got to have a nevertheless attitude. When you know you're called to do something, when you know you're passionate about it, there's no quit in you. It's not negotiable. And in today's age with political correctness and all of this, microwave tendencies of wanting to get what they want, people today, they want to go to school and do this and make $100,000. No, you got to work. You got to work. You got to work. And so for me, it's not work. When you serve, you're not working. If you're not serving, then you're a slave to somebody else's dream. So what I've seen a lot of people do in this business, get in, and they're 3 foot from the mother lode. If they would have bred one more year, if they wouldn't have sold that animal so soon, they might have hit the mother lode, but they quit too soon. You have to learn how to fail forward. There's a guy named John Maxwell wrote a great book years ago called Failing Forward. It's how Caddy Truitt built Chick-fil-A. It's how Mary Kay Ash built Mary Kay, Cosmetics. How Fred Smith built FedEx. All these people got their butts whipped. They failed. They never quit, and they built multi-billion-dollar industries on a dream, on a passion. And so there's nothing wrong with having a hobby interest, and there's nothing wrong with getting into this for a season and for various reasons. But if you really want to build a business you got to sell out. You know what I'm saying? You got to, I mean, I'm never going to retire. I'm 67 years young. I got a 30-year game plan. I'm excited about the next 30 years. I'm going to live to be over 100. You know, I might have a drool cup and a cane, but I'm going to have fun. I'm going to whip your butt. I'm going to keep you moving. We're going to grow this industry. We're going to make it better and better. That's my attitude. I think today that's what I try to share with people that work for me. You know, it's their dream or this industry, whatever. It doesn't matter what you want to do, but you got to have that passion. It's really, really hard for people to do that. You know, people are getting beat up. People are getting beat down. They're said, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, this show is tough. There's a lot of animals going on. A lot of animals are going to go home. A lot of animals got sold. But you know what I tell everybody at these shows, and I've been doing shows since they were started, no such thing as a bad show. Some shows are just more memorable than others.
Right.
And I tell people, you can't sell your second snake or your second lizard or turtle or whatever it is until you sell your first one. So give the first one away so that you can buy the second one. You know, yeah. People look at me and think I'm crazy. I said, well, think about it. You can't catch your second fish until you catch your first fish.
Right.
You know,
right.
So enjoy the process. Have fun. But you've got to be passionate. And that's what I see a lot of. I mean, there's a difference between a hobbyist, because a hobbyist doesn't expect to make a profit or make money, but a professional, I mean, this is how I feed my kids. This is how I feed our 14 employees, keep everybody going, grow the business, pay the debts. You know, it's a lot of responsibilities. It's a lot of work. No guarantees. You know, so I think that's the difference. But the opportunities today, with the advancement in technology,
are many.
Oh,
yeah.
It's so much easier today. It's just like blows my mind. Blows my mind.
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of answered that question.
That did. That's. I mean, it's going to answer that question for the people that are asking it, especially. I think, you know.
Well, we'll see what kind of response we get.
Because you've been doing it for so long, have you compiled data and information on what leads to more successful production with your production levels?
That's a good question. You know, I've caught a lot of flack from my friends in the business and stuff because I'm very OCD about data. And my mentor, Dr. Van Meyer, was one of the founding fathers of the science of pediatric cardiology. I met him in '66, came back from Vietnam, out of the military in '73, and I hooked up with him. And he was starting to use Burmese pythons, wanting to study their hearts, and because they're free chambered, and he was looking to study abnormalities in reptiles for abnormalities in children, and just a wide range. So we needed these animals, we needed the hearts from the fetuses. Long story short, I'm hanging out with one of the world's top foremost medical doctors, one of the founders of the science of pediatric cardiology, and you write things down. He was old school Dutch, so he drilled it into me, write it down, write it down, write it down, and it became a habit. So I have kept copious amounts of data, and it has paid off huge dividends because it frees your mind not to have to be trying to remember everything, writing it down, and you archive everything. But what we have done over the years is we have simplified the way that we collect data. And with technology today, it's a lot faster. And because we've gone to a large-scale operation, because my focus is, you know, I used to do this kind of stuff, but we're volume producers. I'm looking at things on a large scale, global distribution, large volume. So we do things in aggregate. So I study other successful businesses. Another successful animal business would either be people in the lab animal business, or people in the cattle business, or the chicken business, things of those lines. So when you study other like-minded people that are successful, the law of probability says that if you do what successful people are doing, you will be successful. But we've had to tweak it. So the data is huge. And our database on the colubras, our database on the ball pythons, second to none. I mean, I've been purpose breeding balls since 1980. I have all that breeding information. Same thing with the berms. I used to do big and venomous snakes back in the day. I mean, we bred gaboons and we hybridized them back in the early 80s. We had gaboon rhino crosses. I got all that data. And I got boxes and boxes of data. Data today, for all these data junkies, they love data. And one of the fellows that works for us, Steve Tillis, he's now going to accept the University of Florida in graduate school. He's going to be doing a master's and a PhD, and it all has to do with ball pythons. And I'm very excited about what Steve has put together and done. And he's been in my life for 6 years, since he was 18 to the age of 24. And so for me, it's encouraging to see a young guy come along, cop a vision, you know, and really push it and take it to the next level, because he's traveled the world and done a lot of cool things. And he's done a lot for a 24-year-old guy. To see a global distribution, to see global data, to help other peoples and other countries to make good use of their natural resources for whatever, whether it's for protein, human consumption, or for the pet trade, doesn't matter. You know, better to understand. So you've got to write it down. You got to be careful what you write down. You got to really pick and choose, and you learn over time to eliminate all the superfluous data. For me, the data and all of that pursuit, it's the joy of doing. I get to do these things. What a privilege. It's not a right, I get the privilege of choosing to do this. Can't do this anyplace else in the world. You know what I'm saying? This is worth dying for. And what would you die for? You'd die for your kids. I'd die for my kids. Well, I would die for other people's kids too, to have the opportunity to choose to do this. And that's where the passion comes. So, but yeah, writing data down is critical. It'll make you more than money. And people say, well, what can there be more than money? Write it down and you'll find out. You know, I ain't got time to explain it to them. Life's too damn short.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. What kind of involvement do you have with USARK or with the Fish and Wildlife Commission or Florida Wildlife Commission? You're involved there, right?
Oh yeah, I've been involved intensely since the mid-'80s. You know, Florida, we have a lot of unique opportunities here in the state. We've got probably more laws than any other state, but we have more opportunities, we have more responsibilities, and we have more regulations. The good thing about regulations, that you go to the table and you're regulated and you're recognized, and now you can negotiate. Without rules and without regulations, you're just the enemy, so to speak. And if you don't have rules and regulations, then you get some legislature that just wants to pour concrete over you and make you go away. But if you have a voice through rules and regulations, you've got a chance. Now, those rules, are they perfect? No. Are the regulations perfect? Absolutely not. There's a lot of changes in the administration. Here in Florida, I can remember back in the 60s and 70s when there really was no rules and no laws, and it was crazy, not only in the state but internationally. What we've done is we've identified key responsibilities and key players and various entities that are being held to a higher standard because they're willing to pay for the permit, for the privilege to do. FWC, my involvement with them here in Florida, and hopefully there'll be people from FWC that might listen to this. When I got started, they used to be a hunting and fishing organization. And then they went to kind of a conservation organization, and now they've become a preservation organization. They don't like it when I say that, but that's my observation. I've been working with these guys longer than the people that are in charge because I've gone through all the regimes. I'm just telling you what I see. Is it bad? No. Is it good? No. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is because of how our society is. But people want reptiles. People want to go hunting and fishing. People want to go boating. They want to do things. And we've got to get kids of all ages away from stupid vision and cell phones or smartphones. You know, people aren't smart. The phones are smart. The people aren't smart. Well, we got to get people to touch and feel something. And this is what I keep telling them. How are we going to get kids interested to want to work with wildlife or to be biologists or whatever if they can't touch it and feel it and see it? You know what I'm saying? Most people today, their first exposure to a reptile is online. For us, when we were growing up, we were out in the woods and go, what the hell is that? You know what I'm saying? Is it venomous or not? You know, and today you can't go anywhere. So the involvement has been an ongoing process with FWC, and we're really committed to education, educating the regulators to understand that the industry is not bad, that it's good. USARK has been a real blessing. I mean, it started out a little bit rough, but there's been a lot of changes, and now that Phil is running it, they've got the right guy running it. Phil is the ultimate professional. I have so much love and respect and admiration for Phil, and I trust him. He comes to Florida. We got a lot of rule changes going on in Florida. USARK has been huge. You know, the lawsuit that we won April the 7th is big time. You know, basically the federal government was breaking the law for 30 years, and we called, BS on that, and we won. And they shouldn't have been doing what they were doing because they were hurting the industry. They were hurting good people that were trying to do the right thing. A lot of changes still have to take place. Change is slow.
Right.
And
especially
that's the key.
at the bureaucratic level.
Yeah. And there's a lot of bureaucrats in Tallahassee, and there's a hell of a lot of bureaucrats in Washington. But you know what? They're human beings. We have to love them. We don't have to agree with them, but we have to love them and work with them. And you just have to be polite and professional. And, it's not going to do any good to cuss anybody out and stuff like that.
You just get somebody pissed off and you didn't have a vendetta.
Exactly. There's been a lot of good things take place. The reptile industry is very strong in Florida. We're a huge multi-million-dollar industry. We're working on doing a survey in Florida because we're ground zero for the whole reptile trade, both the hobbyists as well as the commercial side. I mean, Florida is huge. I mean, it's a massive, viable industry. There's a lot of people that want to put us out of business. There's a lot of people that don't want us to do what we're doing. Industry's made some mistakes. FWC's made some mistakes. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department of Interior have made mistakes. That's okay. John Maxwell, in his book that I was referring to earlier, he had a great saying. I say this all the time. It's okay to spill a little milk, just don't lose the cow. You know what I'm saying? So the cow's running around out here in the field somewhere. Somebody go get Bessie, bring her in here. Let's milk that cow, Change is taking place. I'm encouraged that things are happening. We're not going to get what we want. They're not going to get what they want. we've got to preserve as best we can the environment and the people, the public, and we've got to be able to grow the industry. You know what I'm saying? And so it's tough. And the biggest challenge is the people. People are the reason why we're going to be successful. People are the reason why we're going to fail.
Right.
It's not the animal's fault.
No, of course not.
Animals don't try. They just are. That ball python will be a ball python. That oak tree will be an oak tree. You know, and it's so simple. That's why it's so difficult. So, but yeah, and I encourage people in other states that don't have regulations to get involved, to go to their local representatives, start, put something down. It's better for somebody in the state that doesn't have any wildlife or regulations to go and write some regulations, you know what I'm saying, that they can live with, that'll make the legislators happy. Because if you make a legislator happy and he looks good, they're all about their image. You know, I mean, they're so egotistical, it's insane.
Yeah.
But if you bring something good to the table and you write the rules, man, it's a win-win situation. Some people in some states are doing that. It's not easy, but if you don't do it, Humane Society or PETA or somebody, they're going to go and write it.
First, yeah.
They're going to cram this stuff down our throat, you know, and they're well-financed. They are mega well-financed, you know what I'm saying?
What regulations do you see coming forward federally involving cage? Any regulations at all that you've seen coming that might be coming in the future?
We haven't discussed that yet. I mean, USDA has been looking, you know, years ago we had some meetings here in Florida. A bunch of big guys came down from DC, met with everybody that was anybody here in the state, and they met with me and Mark Bell and Bill Brandt and FWC and people from USD. I mean, it was just, you know, a who's who. They're looking at things. The government's always wanting to screw with it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how they do it. We haven't heard anything, but you know, I can smell the wood burning, so to speak. And I think the big thing for people that are going to grow a business or be held to a level of accountability is being able to guarantee that their cages can be sanitized. And that's the problem, you know, with wood or galvanized metal. You can't sanitize it. The beauty with the Freedom Breeder and the stainless steel and the aluminum and the plastics, you can sanitize. And that is a USDA, CDC, NSF, NIH acceptance. We're not talking about sterility, we're talking about sanitizing. And so when you have that in place, then the perception is, oh, okay, you're in compliance. You're doing the things that need to be done to make a seamless, conscientious effort of protecting the public and protecting the animals. And we can't win the battle on public perception. The government can't win the battle on public perception. I mean, we got a big time problem here in Florida right now with the red tide and all, you know, miles and miles of dead fish on the beaches and everything else, and everybody's blaming everybody. In this day and age, nobody wants to take the blame. Somebody's to blame, but then a certain part of just nature because of the heat and the weather and these things occur. And that's not my area of expertise, but that's what's relevant right now in Florida is the red tide and all the, you know, dead fish. You can't change what's already happened, and you can do all you want to try to prevent it. That's a whole different issue. So from an industry point of view, I think if we move forward commercially in the pet trade, whether you're in a big box store or you have a franchise or you're just a, you know, mom and pop reptile store, you're doing fish, birds, all that stuff, is being able to have that level of accountability of sanitizing all of your equipment. And so common sense. If you scratch your dog, wash your hand. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's more salmonella on a head of lettuce at Publix than there is on most of the animals that are in here. I mean, that crap's everywhere. Common sense. That's something that you can't teach. So I think the big regulation is not so much what the feds are going to do, what the state's going to do. It's we got to educate people, like wash your hands. You know, and most people at these shows do a good job doing that, you know. Majority of herpers, I would say 80% of them are above board. You know, but it's the new people. They're always coming in, getting in, and you got to train them. I'm not worried too much about those kind of laws for caging per se. And when we have IATA that deals with, you know, international shipping of animals, you know, what Delta did with cutting out Delta Dash, or not cutting it out, but just making it so difficult to ship animals. Can't get an answer out of those guys, you know. And that's a concern for me right there. I don't mind somebody making a change, but let us give input. Where's the science? So, you know, I'm pretty much going to boycott Delta. Plenty of other airlines. You know, that's my feeling about that. You know, if you're going to hurt my friends in the business, then why should I do business with you? And that's what it boils down to right there. So I wouldn't say there's a lot to worry about on that. I think we need to pay attention, you know, but it's all about common sense, keeping things clean and safe. You know, the industry has kind of been bonsaiing itself out of necessity. I mean, I started with big snakes and a lot of venomous, I'm not against them, but not everybody should have a big snake. Not everybody should have a venomous snake. But people need to have reptiles. So if we sell small, safe, innocuous animals that everything's an apex predator to it, then we're not going to have a problem. And I tell people, big snakes, little money; little snakes, bigger money, in terms of efficiency and production, things of those lines. And if you walk around this show or Tinley or go to any of the shows, you're going to see a lot of small reptiles, small lizards, small turtles, small frogs, everything like that. It's bonsai. The whole thing, just small stuff. Big snakes have their place. I love them, but that season of my life is over with, for me personally. And like I said, the biggest thing is to educate people, get more kids. And I'm excited here at this show. A lot of families, a lot of kids. Wayne doesn't let strollers in here because it's a safety hazard, but there's a lot of kids here of all ages. And I saw some kids that were 60 and 70 years old. They're like, oh my God, I've always wanted one of these. It's like, damn, the guy's 70-something years old and he's fired up. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's what we like to see. That's what we like to see.
It's good.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Hope it helps. It
definitely will.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed that interview and that it was full of good information that you can put to use in your own life. I found it inspirational myself. Next week, we're going to be sitting down with Steve Tillis, one of Eugene's protege, and talk with him about the things he has going forward studying snakes. Until then, you've been watching Triple B TV. Y'all take care.